Jeffrey, enlightenment is a term that is used by mystics. It's used by people in common parlance to given the state of the mind and the body. You've been studying it from a fairly rigorous academic point of view. What can you tell me?
Over the last 8 years, we've cataloged over 200 different terms for enlightenment. And we actually use an academic term that is persistent non-symbolic consciousness, because there are so many different words that are associated with this. And we deal with participants in our research literally from all around the world.
Let's deal with that definition, each word, carefully. Mm-hmm. Persistent means it's not just momentary, it continues.
Absolutely.
The next word, non-symbolic. And what does that mean?
Well, traditional thinking is largely along the lines of symbols.
Okay, so
we play with and we manipulate symbols in our heads, and one of the things that differentiates this population is that they really don't think, or at least they don't feel like, in their own mind, it doesn't feel like they're manipulating symbols.
Okay, so it's persistent, non-symbolic consciousness, and that's our general term. Okay, so now we have that term. So what have you learned for these 200 different words and all the different expressions of it?
Over 1,200 different participants, literally all around the world. Neuroscience labs, traditional cognitive science labs, our own research. It's really been an amazing ride. And what we've learned is that it primarily seems to deal with the dissipation of a sense of an individualized sense of self. So most of us feel like we're an individual self operating in this world. We have agency, that I can reach out and touch you, that I'm choosing to reach out and touch you.
Right.
Depending upon where you're at in this space of persistent non-symbolic consciousness, it may or may not feel at all like that to you. In fact, that sense of agency is one of the things that declines until it eventually completely goes away.
Yeah, that's why I don't like it. I don't want to give my agency away. I want to maintain it. I like my agency. I'm very independent, and I don't want my thoughts merged into yours. No offense intended.
I wouldn't mind my thoughts being merged into yours.
Well, I don't
want
them there.
I hear that from everybody. I think it's a very, very common thing for me to hear when I talk about this outside of the population. But what's very interesting is that when you're inside the population, what you hear is, I would never want to go back. This is the way I want to be.
And what is the what do you learn from that?
Well, what I learned from that is it's an incredibly positive state. I think it's perhaps the greatest state or sequence of states. It's not really just one persistent state. There's in fact a developmental continuum, it seems, as the layers of the individual self are peeled back and as they're sort of unsheathed one after another. It's a very predictable pattern that we've seen in research over the last 8 years. And it basically ends with a place that you definitely will think to your, oh my gosh, I don't want to experience that. No emotion, but just tremendous well-being, right? A level of well-being and personal psychological freedom that is uncomparable, indescribable. But no emotion, no sense of agency whatsoever, literally feeling like you can't even make a choice. So things like this, when the average person hears about them, they're like, oh,
yeah, count me out.
Yeah, count me out. And yet the people who are in those persistent states, they would never want to go back.